Hollywood has seen its fair share of scandals, but few can match the sheer scale and spectacle unfolding right now between Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni. What started as a seemingly perfect match, adapting Colleen Hoover's acclaimed novel It Ends With Us into a major film, has spiraled into a high-stakes courtroom drama. On one side, Lively and Reynolds have leveled explosive accusations against Baldoni's production company, Wayfarer Studios, claiming a hostile environment and a vicious smear campaign. On the other side, Baldoni is firing back with evidence that points to an entirely different story, one that paints Lively and Reynolds as aggressors bent on hijacking the project. At the heart of this mess is the tension between public image and raw, real-life controversy. It Ends With Us deals with harrowing themes of domestic turmoil, hardly a carefree romantic comedy. Yet Lively's upbeat, product-driven marketing approach triggered a tidal wave of criticism, with fans accusing her of trivializing a story that deserved thoughtful treatment. As these claims and counterclaims flood social media and federal courtrooms alike, observers are stunned by the emerging details, from allegations of backroom deals to controlling the final cut of the film. The stakes have soared to an eye-popping $400 million, and the reputational damage might be even greater. Baldoni, a once-respected director who helped champion heartfelt stories, now struggles to salvage a career overshadowed by this lawsuit. Lively, once the golden icon of style and wit, faces pointed questions about her methods and honesty. Reynolds, beloved for his comedic charm and business ventures, finds himself caught in the crossfire. With each legal motion and damning piece of evidence, the entire production plunges deeper into chaos. This script will guide you through every twist and turn, laying out how this seemingly exciting collaboration devolved into Hollywood's most talked-about battlefield. From the early days of fan enthusiasm to the enormous lawsuits now overshadowing every conversation, prepare for a roller coaster of allegations, leaked emails, budget-busting decisions, and shocking betrayals. And by the end, you'll see how this drama goes far beyond a single film, revealing power plays and media manipulations that could reshape the careers and reputations of everyone involved. When fans of Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us heard that Hollywood planned to adapt the novel, excitement swept through book clubs and social media. Hoover's work had risen to prominence on bestsellers lists, fueling intense devotion among readers who found her portrayal of domestic struggles courageous and deeply human. The book was a striking mix of romance and hardship, shining a light on cycles of violence and emotional pain. Given the depth of the material, many people believed that the film adaptation would be a watershed moment, an opportunity for mainstream cinema to tackle these sensitive themes with compassion. In interviews prior to the chaos, Justin Baldoni expressed admiration for the source material. He promised a brave, honest adaptation that would champion Hoover's fans and the message at the core of the novel. Enter Blake Lively, an actress known for her polished style, magnetic personality, and a track record of playing vibrant, quick-witted characters. On paper, her casting sparked an immediate buzz. She had the range to convey Lily's resilience, and her star power promised big box office draws. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds, her equally famous spouse, showed subtle hints of involvement behind the scenes. Rumors swirled that he might use his experience as a producer to ensure the film reached wide audiences. At first, the collaboration seemed like a dream, with Baldoni's directorial approach focusing on empathy, plus Lively's knack for connecting with fans. Early predictions pointed to a potential blockbuster. Book enthusiasts expected a promotional push that reflected the novel's rawness and its emotional depth. Few realized how swiftly all these hopes would unravel under the weight of conflicting visions, marketing miscalculations, and, ultimately, betrayal. The cracks began showing even before official trailers hit. In a string of online teasers, Lively showcased an aesthetic that seemed oddly cheerful and flashy for such a heavy narrative. Spotlights fell on her hair care line and casual brand endorsements, presented alongside references to Lily's story. The dissonance jarred fans. They asked, why are we seeing talk of floral dresses and trendy cocktails when this story is about generational trauma and heartbreak? The initial confusion might have been cleared with a simple explanation. Maybe they planned to hook mainstream viewers before revealing the film's darker side. Yet, no such explanation arrived. Instead, Lively doubled down on her marketing approach, posting more bright, glamorous content that rarely acknowledged the painful realities of the plot. Online communities started expressing concern that the film would miss the book's deeper message. Soon, that concern turned to outrage when the word got out. Lively had major creative sway over nearly every aspect of production, from set design to publicity. Even at this early point, industry insiders sensed a collision course. They recognized that Lively's brand often leans into stylish empowerment, lighthearted, consumer-friendly content that sells. But It Ends With Us required a more nuanced method. The question was, could the two approaches coexist without overshadowing the story's entire point? That question would become increasingly loaded in the weeks ahead, as allegations of toxic behavior and sabotage began to surface. With the release date inching closer, promotional efforts picked up steam. Instead of focusing on Lily's turbulent experiences or the film's overarching theme of escaping harmful patterns, Lively's social media accounts and interviews appeared to treat the movie like a breezy, feel-good romance. In one controversial appearance, she juggled praising a new hair product with referencing the film as a night out with your girlfriends. Fans of the novel erupted, posting side-by-side comparisons. On one hand, a story of heartache and cyclical abuse. On the other, marketing that could have been pulled from an upbeat rom-com. Blake Lively's personal brand is undeniably strong. She's built a reputation for witty banter, high fashion, and business savvy. Her fans are used to seeing her touting lifestyle endorsements. But this time, the alignment felt jarring. Memes cropped up almost overnight, mocking what seemed to be an extreme disconnect between the novel's grave subject matter and Lively's curated Instagram feed. People demanded a shift in tone, address the seriousness, they pleaded, or at least acknowledge it. Instead, the disconnect grew louder. Some insiders claim Lively had struck a series of lucrative sponsorship deals, tying the film's promotion into brand partnerships. Public relations experts warned that merging a heartfelt narrative about domestic violence with product pushing could be a recipe for scandal. True enough, outrage on social media swelled by the day. Hashtags calling out the tone-deaf marketing began to trend, overshadowing the usual hype you'd expect for a film adaptation of a beloved bestseller. As if the PR meltdown wasn't enough, tension simmered behind the scenes. Crew members quietly confided in film blogs that they felt overshadowed by Lively's near-total control over creative decisions. The budget soared, particularly in the costume department, after Lively decided the original outfits didn't fit her vision for Lily. Rumors circulated that Justin Baldoni was caught off guard by the financial overreach, but faced internal pressure to keep the star happy. While some fans tried to remain optimistic, the film's reputation started taking on water fast. Critics hadn't even seen a final cut, and yet the conversation around It Ends With Us began focusing entirely on its star's social media presence and questionable marketing strategies. Hollywood watchers predicted that if the film flopped, the blame game would reach epic proportions. Little did they know just how epic it would become once lawsuits started dropping. Things reached a fever pitch when Lively took the extraordinary step of filing a $250 million lawsuit against Justin Baldoni, Wayfarer Studios, and several unnamed individuals she accused of coordinated defamation and workplace misconduct. The entertainment industry gasped. It's not every day that an A-list star sues her own director and production team for such a staggering sum. In her filing, Lively claimed she was the victim of a hostile environment that persisted throughout filming. She described incidents where she felt unsupported, undermined, and at times, deliberately set up to fail. According to her lawsuit, whenever she attempted to steer the film's marketing toward a brighter or more whimsical approach, which she believed was essential to broaden the movie's appeal, she was met with sneering remarks and dismissive attitudes. She pointed to the deluge of fan backlash online as proof that someone had strategically leaked her marketing plans to the public, setting her up for ridicule. One of the more alarming elements of her complaint centered on alleged smear tactics. Lively asserted that Baldoni's team fed entertainment news outlets with stories that painted her as out of touch and self-centered, effectively framing her as the reason the film was losing credibility. She insisted these strategic leaks were designed to erode her standing and shift blame away from the production's failings. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of Lively's legal argument was the suggestion that her high-profile marketing fiascos were, in part, orchestrated by others. She maintained that many brand tie-ins and promotional stunts were greenlit by the studio, only to be weaponized against her later. With fans labeling her efforts tone-deaf, she argued, Baldoni escaped scrutiny for creative decisions that didn't align with the novel's serious message. The lawsuit arrived like a thunderclap, shocking not just fans but also industry insiders who had pegged Lively as easygoing and conflict-averse. Typically, these sorts of disagreements are handled through internal arbitration or quiet settlements. The fact that Lively went public with a colossal nine-figure demand signaled an all-out war. And as the story's next chapter would show, Baldoni was more than ready to strike back. Soon after Lively's lawsuit made headlines, Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios filed a countersuit so explosive it threatened to overshadow even her claims. Baldoni alleged that Lively, in tandem with Ryan Reynolds, engineered a scheme to wrest creative control and intellectual property rights away from him. The final goal, he claimed, was to force him off the project, thereby gaining sole authority over It Ends With Us and its planned sequel, It Starts With Us. The court documents painted a radically different picture. Lively wasn't a victim at all, according to Baldoni, but a powerful actress who systematically sidelined the production's original team. Emails, text chains, and budget memos were presented as evidence that she demanded top-to-bottom changes, recasting certain roles, discarding pre-purchased costumes, overruling established shooting schedules, and even introducing an inexperienced film editor. The escalation in costs and logistical chaos, Baldoni claimed, was staggering. One of the most dramatic points in Baldoni's filing detailed an alleged incident in which Lively took an unfinished cut of the film without his or the studio's permission. She then reportedly flew to a massive Colleen Hoover fan event, showing off footage to an audience that could have easily leaked it online. Baldoni argued that such an action wasn't just unprofessional, it endangered distribution deals and violated standard industry protocols that protect works in progress. Baldoni also insisted he tried to accommodate Lively's input at nearly every turn but found himself effectively shut out of major creative decisions. His role as director became, in his words, almost ceremonial, because Lively was dictating rewrites, music choices, and marketing angles. He provided emails hinting that her influence overshadowed the entire production. And as the tension escalated, so did the potential losses, first in the tens of millions, and eventually ballooning toward the $400 million mark cited in their combined lawsuits. For Baldoni, this fight wasn't merely about clearing his name, it was about salvaging his career and protecting his company. He recounted how he lost his agent at WME, saw deals with major studios collapse, and got branded as difficult to work with in trade publications. All of these setbacks, he alleged, were orchestrated by Lively's team to paint him as incompetent. And the biggest blow of all was that the public never got to see his perspective until now. With the court documents made public and a robust defense strategy in place, Baldoni was determined to reveal every alleged overreach and contradiction in Lively's story. Just when fans thought this dispute had reached its peak, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Fredman, launched a website dedicated to presenting evidence that challenged Lively's accusations. This was no simple press release. It was a comprehensive hub filled with timelines, documents, text screenshots, production logs, and even short behind-the-scenes video snippets. The sheer volume of material was staggering, and it aimed to dismantle Lively's claims one by one. Visitors to the site could see email exchanges allegedly proving that Lively requested massive wardrobe overhauls, long after costumes had been purchased, sending the budget skyrocketing. Another batch of emails showed her strongly advocating for a brand new composer, despite the original composer's contract with the studio. Text messages highlighted last-minute script rewrites that came directly from Lively or her team, often ignoring the creative direction Baldoni had initially planned. But perhaps the most attention-grabbing element was a timeline suggesting Lively only began voicing serious concerns about misconduct after the public criticized her marketing approach. Before the backlash, she appeared to praise the production environment, even calling it the most collaborative set she had worked on in a chain of messages to her personal stylist. Then, as soon as fans turned on her for trivializing the film's themes, her stance shifted abruptly. Fredman argued that this abrupt change in tone was no coincidence. He suggested it was evidence of a calculated move to deflect blame for a bungled marketing strategy by framing Baldoni as the villain. He also pointed out that Lively had publicly taken credit for many of the creative choices now being criticized. One incriminating clip showed her on a podcast bragging about drinking from a fire hose, an offhand way of describing how she absorbed total control over the production. Predictably, Lively's legal team called the site a desperate publicity stunt meant to sway public opinion outside the courtroom. They filed motions seeking a gag order, accusing Fredman of releasing confidential material. But the public was riveted. Discussion boards and entertainment blogs lit up, dissecting every new revelation. The question no longer was whether these two parties simply didn't get along. It was whether one side had orchestrated a targeted, manipulative power play that cost everyone else dearly. With tempers flaring and accusations stacking higher by the day, it was inevitable that the next act would play out in a federal courtroom. In a heated preliminary hearing, Lively's legal team demanded a gag order against Baldoni's attorney. They insisted that Fredman was fueling a public smear campaign by strategically leaking documents and videos, tainting any chance of a fair trial. Yet the presiding judge quickly shot down the request. Gag orders in federal court are notoriously difficult to obtain, especially when the information at issue comes from public court filings. The judge acknowledged that the case was high-profile, but that alone did not override the public's right to access legal documents and the principle of open court proceedings. If Lively wanted certain details sealed, she would have to meet an exceedingly strict standard, one her attorneys could not fulfill. This was a crushing blow for Lively, who seemed intent on controlling the narrative. Her team also tried to block Fredman from deposing her, arguing that his personal animus against her undermined the process. But the judge dismissed that objection, too. In federal civil litigation, you don't get to pick who questions you. As long as basic rules of civility are upheld, the deposition stands. The hearing ended with a stark reminder from the judge that if these legal fights continued at their current intensity, the trial date, originally set more than a year away, could be pushed up. That meant less time for both sides to prepare, more media scrutiny, and the possibility of more explosive revelations coming to light sooner. In short, Lively's attempts to get Baldoni's side backfired, and the entire affair threatened to escalate even further. Outside the courthouse, news cameras captured fleeting images of attorneys rushing from microphones, refusing to engage in lengthy statements. The silence, however, only fueled speculation. If Lively had sought a clampdown to prevent damaging new leaks, her plan had hit a dead end. Meanwhile, Baldoni's camp celebrated a significant legal victory, emboldened by the judge's decisions and apparently ready to share even more receipts. The longer this battle wages on, the clearer it becomes that nobody escapes unscathed. Public lawsuits of this magnitude are a career minefield, especially in Hollywood, where image and reputation often matter more than talent. For Justin Baldoni, the fallout began almost immediately. High-level sources confirmed that his agent at WME cut ties, concerned about the swirling accusations and the risk of negative publicity. Deals for upcoming projects began slipping away as studios hesitated to associate their brand with a figure mired in what was being portrayed as a major scandal. His once promising directorial arc froze in place, replaced by urgent damage control efforts. Yet for Blake Lively, the consequences loom just as large. While she remains a recognizable star, big studios often shy away from controversy, especially controversies that might suggest an A-lister is difficult or manipulative behind the scenes. According to rumors circulating among Hollywood casting agents, producers are quietly removing Lively's name from shortlists for future tentpole projects. They worry about unpredictability and the potential for future legal entanglements. Ryan Reynolds, meanwhile, is entangled by association. His public persona has largely been comedic, lighthearted, and philanthropic, but the litigation suggests he was deeply involved in the behind-the-scenes wrangling for rights to the film's sequel. If the court documents show that he participated in strong-arm tactics or orchestrated negative press, it could tarnish his squeaky clean brand and jeopardize business partnerships. Fans across social media are conflicted. Some vehemently defend Lively, convinced that her experiences as a woman in Hollywood must be believed. Others, alarmed by the mountain of evidence, see possible manipulations that overshadow genuine claims. Baldoni, too, has supporters who argue that he was never given a fair chance to present his side until everything blew up. Still, a significant segment of the public believes both parties share blame in a meltdown fueled by ego, poor communication, and unstoppable momentum. Amid the swirl of accusations, one casualty is definitely the film itself. The original hope for It Ends With Us was that it would highlight domestic violence issues on a grand stage, prompting empathy, conversation, and possibly even activism. Instead, any mention of the movie's actual content now pales in comparison to the scandal raging behind the scenes. Even if the final cut eventually sees a theatrical release, it risks being overshadowed by the drama that consumed its production. One incident stands out as an emblem of everything amiss with this production, the so-called forced apology. According to Baldoni's legal filings, Lively and her team demanded that Wayfarer Studios release a statement taking full blame for the negative backlash swirling around the movie. The wording they wanted pinned every marketing misstep squarely on Baldoni, absolving Lively of any responsibility for the widely panned, floral fashion meets domestic drama promotional approach. In internal emails made public, Lively's lawyers had crafted a statement reading something like, "We unreservedly apologize for any confusion or offense caused by our handling of It Ends With Us." Blake Lively and the cast conducted themselves with total professionalism at every step. Baldoni refused to sign it. In his view, that apology would be an outright lie, a scapegoating effort to shield the actress from the consequences of her own marketing choices. The standoff over this forced apology reveals a deeper dynamic. In Hollywood, control of the narrative can dictate fortunes. If Baldoni had complied, the public might have accepted that he and his production team were at fault for trivializing a serious subject. Meanwhile, Lively could have walked away relatively unscathed, brand intact. His refusal, combined with the subsequent leak of the apology demand, created a new wave of fan outrage. Many who had once rushed to Lively's defense began questioning her motives, her honesty, and her willingness to push blame onto others. It's a stark demonstration of how quickly alliances can shift in the film industry. One moment, an actress and a director are forging a creative bond, emphasizing synergy and mutual respect. The next, they're locked in a bitter dispute over who must confess to mistakes the public won't forgive. The damage done by these behind-the-scenes power struggles is often hidden behind polished marketing. But in this case, it erupted into full public view. In the aftermath, the apology scandal only hardened both sides. If Lively ever harbored thoughts of reconciling with Baldoni, that possibility seemed to vanish. Wayfarer Studios dug in, determined not to be manipulated. Lively's camp escalated its claims, insisting that by refusing to apologize, Baldoni was both misogynistic and unprofessional. The cycle of accusations continued, and the project slid further into the mud. With so much legal wrangling overshadowing the film, many are left wondering, what becomes of It Ends With Us? The film is theoretically complete, albeit overshadowed by scandal. Industry insiders say that distribution deals are in limbo, with some potential partners wary of touching a project that's now more famous for lawsuits than for any cinematic accomplishment. If it does get released, will audiences embrace it or boycott it? Will the final cut even align with the novel's intended message, given the alleged heavy-handed interventions? The sequel, It Starts With Us, might face an even bigger question mark. Baldoni's cross-complaint accuses Lively and Reynolds of scheming to secure the rights to the sequel behind his back. If the courts find merit in that accusation, the entire future of the franchise could be decided by a judge's ruling. Hollywood has seen big franchises ruined by behind-the-scenes disputes before, but rarely with such a personal dimension. Colleen Hoover's legion of fans are also caught in the middle. They champion her heartfelt storytelling and want to see these books faithfully adapted. Yet the swirl of negative press might doom the film's prospects. If the lawsuits drag on, overshadowing the content of the movies, loyal readers might sour on the entire endeavor. Others worry the legal fiasco could distort the sequel if it ever gets made, shifting the tone to something unrecognizable. Meanwhile, Lively's lawsuit and Baldoni's countersuit are still winding through the complex gears of the legal system. Lawyers on both sides regularly file motions, claiming fresh evidence or pointing out alleged contradictions. The judge might consolidate the suits or allow them to proceed separately. If either side fails to produce hard evidence backing up their accusations, the ultimate decision could hinge on credibility, a messy proposition in a world of high-stakes spin and possible backdoor deals. The tension extends beyond just these names. Hollywood at large is watching because these lawsuits underline broader issues. What happens when a powerful star decides they want more control than they were contractually given? How do directors protect their creative vision from being steamrolled by an A-lister's brand obligations? And to what extent can marketing overshadow or derail a project if not handled with care and respect for the material? All these questions loom large as the final outcome remains uncertain. Even if you're not invested in the personal drama of Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni, this fiasco exposes the fragile intersection of celebrity culture and creative storytelling. Lively and Reynolds represent the pinnacle of modern Hollywood stardom. Movie roles, profitable business ventures, millions of adoring social media followers. Their brand is so strong that entire marketing strategies can revolve around their personal tastes, jokes, and public persona. In contrast, Baldoni built a reputation for sensitive, character-driven projects. He's known for fostering inclusive, empathetic environments, at least prior to these allegations. The notion of him masterminding a toxic workplace doesn't align with his public image of championing heartfelt narratives. That's part of why the conflict is so riveting. One side is accused of manipulative marketing that trivializes serious content, the other of orchestrating a smear campaign. Both sides claim the moral high ground, leading fans to pick teams in a drama that's as baffling as it is sensational. But the deeper truth is that these court battles reveal how money, marketing, and ego can corrupt the creative process. A project that should have focused on illuminating domestic challenges became a battleground for endorsements, brand expansions, and social media hype. Instead of exploring Lily's harrowing journey, we got a swirl of allegations about who controlled the final edit, who inflated the budget, and who planted negative stories in the press. In a sense, the situation forces a reckoning. Are we witnessing the decline of star-driven studios that push heavy-handed marketing at any cost? Will future directors and producers impose stricter contracts limiting actor influence on marketing strategies? Could this lead to more caution among investors, who now see how easily a high-profile adaptation can implode if the star and director clash over creative decisions? As the entire industry watches, the big question is whether anything will truly change. Will the outcome of this lawsuit guide future collaborations toward healthier boundaries, or will it just become another cautionary tale that gets buried once the headlines fade? Only time and likely a series of court rulings will tell. But it's safe to say the repercussions will resonate long after the final gavel comes down. In the end, what we have is a cautionary tale about ambition, power, and the high costs that come when Hollywood's biggest names pull a story in divergent directions. It ends with Us began as a project brimming with potential, a heartfelt novel, a talented director seeking authenticity, and a star so beloved that fans assumed she could bring Lily's struggles to life with nuance. Instead, marketing controversies and conflicting visions turned the set into a war zone. A wave of lawsuits threatens to bury the film under layers of scandal, overshadowing the very narrative that made Colleen Hoover's novel a bestseller in the first place. Blake Lively's suit asserts she was the victim of a toxic environment and smear tactics. Justin Baldoni's counterclaim suggests she orchestrated the entire meltdown to gain control of a potentially lucrative franchise. The public can't help but watch, transfixed by each new revelation. Every court filing, leaked email, and contradictory interview fuels a media frenzy unlike anything Hollywood has seen in years. With hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, the reputations of Lively, Reynolds, and Baldoni hang by a thread. What remains is a story of caution for everyone. For fans who invest their hopes in big-name adaptations, for stars who blur the line between personal brand and creative fidelity, for directors who might be sidelined by an A-lister's demands, and for the industry executives who bet millions on the assumption that star power can paper over any controversy. As the lawsuits wind their way through federal court, the final verdict will likely ripple across Hollywood, influencing how studios approach star-driven deals, how authors negotiate adaptation rights, and how fans react when a beloved tale becomes the epicenter of a scandal. Whether justice will prevail depends on which story the courts find credible. Yet no matter the final ruling, the damage has been done. The synergy once anticipated for It Ends With Us has turned into bitter acrimony. Careers teeter on the brink, and a novel that deserved a sensitive portrayal might never escape the cloud of lawsuits and finger-pointing. In a place where illusions are crafted for the silver screen, the illusions around this project have crumbled, leaving behind the raw, messy truth. Even Hollywood's brightest names can stumble into a darkness they can't easily escape. And for Lively, Reynolds, and Baldoni, that darkness may haunt them long after the final court documents are filed and the cameras stop rolling.